everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today's video is QOZ, Qualified Opportunity Zone Investing 101, subtitle, Survive the Reset. And I hope you all are doing quite well, whether you're in Louisville, Kentucky, burning to the ground after, the ruling on Breonna Taylor, or you're out here in Kami, California, where the air is actually clear, here in the Central Valley around Sacramento for the first time in weeks, which is very nice to see. It's nice to breathe deep and open up the windows a little bit. It's been kind of, it's one thing when there's a COVID pandemic lockdown and you can still at your house, go outside in your backyard and whatnot, or at least enjoy kind of, the outdoor fresh air in your own environs at your own house. But when it's like this, the air is just filled with thick smoke for weeks on end, and you can't really go anywhere. And they're turning off your power because of, PG&E is already bankrupt, and, they can't actually fix the problem. So their solution is just to turn off the power whenever the wind blows, which is insane. But, welcome to California, where we're the greatest state in the nation if you listen to the commies. But in any case, we're going to be talking a little bit more. This is an extrapolation, a follow-up to the last video, which was SPX, which I guess I didn't explain in the video title, is the ticker for the S&P 500, right? The Standard & Poor's stock index of, kind of the 500 top stocks by, certain metrics, including, valuation and other things. And essentially, it's kind of the general metric for the stock market, right? There's the Dow Jones Industrial Average, there's the NASDAQ, which is more tech stocks, and then there's the S&P 500, which is just kind of like the 500 biggest. And so at this point in history, there's really only 4 or 5 companies that dominate the S&P 500. Over half of the earnings, the gains in the S&P 500 as a total were from essentially these 5 stocks. And, one of which was still one of the top guys back in 2000, the last time this kind of domination by just a few was seen, which is Microsoft. And the others today are, Facebook, Apple, Alphabet, which is Google, Netflix is up there. And essentially, it's funny because none of them actually make anything. Microsoft, is software, right? And, Bill Gates has his new pet projects, of course, also to do with viruses. He was the master of computer viruses, and he just decided, I'll be an expert on human viruses, too, because I'm a billionaire, and why not? And, there's Google, which, again, is software. I mean, they have infrastructure and, but primarily, again, all of these, Facebook, right, they don't produce anything. They're selling advertising. They're selling you. They're selling the data about you, the user, ignorantly thinking that these are just benevolent platforms, for helping people connect and share baking recipes, But it's funny because, as many of you probably know, but some might not, Facebook, the literal day that the company was formed, was the exact same day as when there was a project that was supposedly retired from the Pentagon, the Defense Department, which was called, LifeLog. That's what it was, LifeLog. And essentially it was a social media, and it was essentially for people to voluntarily upload all of this information about themselves. Essentially, the things that the intelligence agencies used to try and to ascertain by all this, smoke and shadow and deceit and trickery. And now they basically just have everybody giving it to them voluntarily, and sharing everything about themselves, their location, their interests, all of their connection to friends and family. I mean, it's really astounding. So again, when Facebook banned me back on 420, and in 2014, it was the greatest favor Mark Zuckerberg has ever given me. And, I thank you again to the robots who are acting on behalf of the grand alien robot master. He really is the creepiest dude in the entire world. You could at least say that Steve Jobs had kind of a personality to him, but Zuckerberg is really just if anybody is a reptilian, a shapeshifter, it's got to be that guy, right? But in any case, Netflix again produces nothing, and back in the day, back in the 60s, right, the top 5 companies were like large production companies, and it's like, say what you will about those companies, not like they were all super moral and ethical, but my point here is that it was tangible material production. It was really making things. And now it's essentially our greatest valuation is on things that aren't even things. It's just software and algorithms. And again, it's like, I'll acknowledge the value there. I mean, the algorithm is a marvel to behold, but now it's being used as a noose to strangle us all with. So it's like, I'm not going to marvel at the tool that's being used to, strangle me, but I will at the same time marvel at the inevitable, inexorable human ingenuity that always overcomes these things. And so it's always this great dance and game between those of malintent and those of benevolent intent. And that, I think that by default, it's not to say that everybody in finance is corrupt, but I think the people who operate long enough in finance, they kind of become jaded by very default. It's like people who work in like a correctional facility, or people who just work in like an EMT, and they see all kinds of like just grotesque wounds and crazy situations, and it screws them up. It's psychologically traumatizing. But there are good people, of course, but there's, in certain fields, it draws those who are a little twisted and those who are a little kind of sociopathic, and in certain cases psychopathic. The people who are driven to high finance and in a big sense are those who don't really attach any meaning to their productive endeavor. It's really all about the quantitative maximization of how much money is possible, and it does not matter how. As long as you can get away with it, the law is just a convention. That is how essentially these people think. They are just in terms of, status and wealth, the highest class of criminal, and they run major investment banks. They absolutely grift the system at the highest level for their own benefit. And it would be one thing if they just did that and that were it, but they also are engaged in the systematic subjugation and deception of the people of the country and the people of the world. And so it's like, I have no problem with anybody becoming wealthy. I just, I don't see wealth building as a zero-sum game where everything I gain I take from another, right? The true economy, the true, physics of the interaction is a mutual benefit. It is an increase in the net amount. It is not net zero. When we work together, we create things that were not there before. And, we should all have independence. We should all have decentralization. But, nobody can deny that it is the systemization of labor, the specialization of labor that has enabled this entire world. That, one of us can focus on just one little thing and just dial that thing in, me, I'm focusing on some other thing. And, I very much am a do-it-yourself person. I love to do things on my own, and if I can get it done for cheaper by doing a few extra steps myself and buying some parts, and I feel it's within my capacity, I'm gonna go for it. Like, I just did the math on like a Tesla Powerwall is like 14 to 16 grand. I think you can get credits and stuff to bring it down to like 7 or 8. But I did the math on the capacity, which is 13.5 kilowatt hours. And so basically that equates to, if I were to, go on a 12-volt system, if I just went and bought essentially 10 marine batteries from Home Depot at 115 amp hours each, those 11 marine batteries for basically, or 10 marine batteries for $1,100, I can get the same capacity. And then I, buy some wire them in series, and essentially have my system in series. I believe it's in series or in parallel. Pretty sure it's in series. But in any case, again, I'm not even an electrical engineer, but I know how to find things out, and I know how to find solutions that are easier than most people are willing to understand. And
but it does entail a little bit of research, some responsibility, humility, and willingness to learn. Those are the type of people that inevitably build wealth in any situation, right? Whether they're in, Zimbabwe, or, they're in a rural, town in America, or they're in a city. As long as you can understand just how to merge it with your environment and find those opportunities, and then just apply your energy in that space, then you will build wealth. It's just how it works. When you understand that we're not all just here to grind the gears and to make these pieces of paper and, pay interest to bankers, it's like we are doing things that are meaningful. We are producing a world that brings people profound meaning and joy. Not everybody, and that's sad. But if even that one person who manages to marvel at the universe, and really just, have that moment of joy and appreciation, it's almost like it was all worth it, right? In the negative sense, they say, if we can prevent one death, then it was all worth it to lock down the entire country. Never mind all the people we killed by the lockdown. It didn't matter if we prevented their deaths, just COVID. But it's like, at the same time, if even one person, finds that joy and that meaning and that connection with God, then in a sense it was all worthwhile. Because just as, the seed that is scattered on the earth, most of the seed will not root. Most of the seed will wither and die, and some of it will land on, sandy soil, and it will, not really thrive. But then that one seed will go into the pure and clean and nutritious soil, and it will basically become a tree, and that tree will produce millions and billions of new seeds. And so all that really matters is for that one to maintain the connection. And it's like in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, it's like God sent the angels down, and they're like, if we can find just one person in these cities that is not a scumbag and a degenerate and just a vile piece of shit, then all right, we'll save the cities. Okay, I mean, we're not trying to be total asshole. And then it's like, at least in the story, they go through and there's not a single person who's not fully engaged and complicit in the murder and the rape and the degeneracy and, the incest and adultery and pedophilia. And they're like, all right, as Larry Silverstein might say, we made the decision to pull it. You gotta laugh, because if they keep you black-pilled, then they win, right? I understand that we are still in a dark situation, very uncertain situation, and most people are not as optimistic as myself. But if you would learn to relax, and if you would learn to connect, and if you would learn to just lose yourself in that meaningful divine work, the great work of the building of the kingdom of heaven, it is my belief, it is my experience that you will find the group and the partner that you are looking for. It's a natural consequence of that maturity and that readiness. And yes, that might entail some vast movements from yourself. It might be in a totally different place, a totally different condition than you found yourself, prior. And that entails a lot of very hard decisions in a lot of ways, but ultimately it is about losing our fear. It is about seeing life as this video game that we should not be afraid of, but that we can choose our own destiny, and that we are in command of the realm, and because we are in command of our own reactions. And so, but people, they only feel comfortable in the video game. They don't feel comfortable in real life. They're afraid of real life. It's scary to them, the idea of rejection and failure and embarrassment. But I tell you what, it really doesn't matter in the end as long as you learn from it. Because, it's like, again, in a very real sense, you can be a total doofus in the town you grew up in, but then when you just kind of mature and grow older and just leave that place and you move to a new place, nobody knows who you came from. Nobody knows who you were. Nobody knows the things that you got laughed at for, the things you got bullied for. You're an entirely new person. And, that can, psychopaths like that because they can just manufacture a new identity and escape accountability. But in a positive sense, you can always shed your skin like a serpent and basically become a new and fresh version of yourself and unencumbered by the traumas of the past. Because it doesn't serve us to always be dwelling on all these things that we thought we coulda, woulda, shoulda done. And ultimately, it's just about using the energy we have at this moment in the most effective way possible and to leverage our own energies into the opportunities that are right in front of us. And that's where I come to opportunity zones. Because this is honestly, there's very few things that I could say, wow, the government really did a good job on that. Like, that's a great idea. Like, literally, I don't know if I can name a single other thing besides this. And it's basically, it was come up by Senator Tim Scott, a black Republican senator, and Trump himself, President Trump, was a big backer of it. And it was passed back with the, I believe, the tax cut bill back at the beginning of Trump's presidency in 2017. And essentially, excuse me, what it did is it enabled all of it basically designated all these spaces across the country, thousands and thousands of, of parcels of different places in different states that are designated as lower growth. They hadn't really, all this money that's been pumped into the system wasn't really reaching these places, and they were stagnating economically, whereas other places, like the cities, are just getting juiced with massive amounts of, funny money cash from the Fed. And so it's a way to basically incentivize investment in the areas of the country that have not really seen the love, not really felt the love. And so basically the way that it does that is by capital gains tax incentives. So basically, the basic overview, you buy some stock and you hold it for a certain amount of time, 5 years say, and you sell it for a higher price, right? Let's say you bought it at $100 a share and you sold it at $200 a share. And so you made a gain of $100 per share. And let's say you basically had 1,000 shares, and so it was a $100,000 gain, right? You owe a tax to the government when you so the rules go, when you sell that asset. And so there's a federal capital gains tax and a state capital gains tax, and in California, both of them together come out to about 31%, the low 30s. And basically, so $31,000 you owe as a tax payment to the government when you sell that stock. And it's basically why a lot of people just keep their money in the stock market and let it ride and try and maximize that value and that gain. But it's a heavy hit. It's a third of your money goes to Caesar, right? Just because he says so. And I guess they enabled the casino game as well. So they're like, well, give a cut to the boss. But the opportunity zone is if you can defer that tax liability. You don't have to pay it that year if you reinvest your gain into a opportunity zone business, which is a qualified opportunity fund. Any tangible business that operates in one of these opportunity zones can register as a very simple one-page form with the IRS on your tax return to self-certify as a qualified opportunity fund. And you just list which opportunity zone that it's in, and it's as simple as that. So, and people, they can get out of that $31,000 that, the capital gains tax payment in the prior example, and they can defer paying that. They don't have to pay it until basically 2027. Essentially, the end of 2026 is when the deferral ends. So then in that, following tax filing, that's where you would be liable to pay that. However, over that 7 years or so, you basically, the amount that you owe goes down. So if you held for that 7 years, you would owe less than you did back then, 15% less. So that $31,000 times basically 85% or minus 15%. And so basically, that comes out to, about like $5,000 or so in that example. And there's also the aspect of, instead of having to pay it back then, right, time is money. Time is worth more than money. And it is, you have the opportunity to use that money and invest it and to make gains off of it during that 7 years. So it's like the gains you make from investing that money in that time, literally you could pay off what you owed, just from the gains and keep the principal essentially. And that's a very real incentive for a lot of people that have a lot of paper wealth in the stock market. People have held on to some of these Apple and Google and Netflix stocks and Tesla have ridden it all the way up, and they really, there's an incentive to take profits, right? To sell some of that stock and to put it, off, like in one's pocket in the safe, right? And so again, that's how you build wealth, is you're playing essentially this game, this gardening with capital, and watching things grow. And when they grow to a sizable size, then you harvest it, right? And then you replant a new crop with the seeds you take from that. This is the sort of lens through which I view entrepreneurship and investing and capitalism. And it very much, I like the modality because it introduces a lot of concepts that I think get lost in the techno macro mindset of economics, where people think they can just tweak the system like it's just a car or a computer. I mean, it's really not. It's more like an organic system, and the more that you want to treat it like a car or a computer system is the more that you will introduce distortions and the consequences of which you cannot control, and will often turn against the operator. And of course, beyond the operator, there's a whole slew of collateral damage, of unintended consequences for other people as well, right? And that's all the ups and downs of the economy and the distortions and the wealth inequality. And it's funny again that the liberals and the socialists, they love their fiat money, when that is literally the mechanism by which income inequality, like inordinate income inequality, has been manifested. It's literally through fiat money and the Fed's money printing. It's the thing that they hate, that because it causes inequality, is the thing they love because it gives their blessed government basically infinite financial power and no meaningful constraints on its ability to basically pay for things and spend money, because they can just create it. And again, that also hinges on the military dominion of the United States. So by default, when Trump and the populist nationalist movement in general seeks to end the American empire and bring our troops home, by default this will be associated with the financial reset, because people won't necessarily voluntarily use the US dollar in the same way as they did when they were sort of protected, quote unquote, in the mafia sense, by the United States empire. When people have their own security arrangements, they will have their own currency arrangements as well. And so again, there's something coming, and they will reset the system. They're already talking about the central bank digital currencies, and depositing money into people's bank accounts the next time that there's a crisis, or a new, even if there was a next round of coronavirus. They're trying to do these recession insurance bonds that basically, where they would just create an app in people's phone and they would deposit digital dollars into their accounts. And so, essentially, again, UBI is the carrot for which they will, slip in the digital currencies, where they can track every transaction. And so, again, it's either we solve the problem of commerce and governance, or they will introduce their global solution, and we'll have to, then be in a much less advantageous situation to try and implement, the positive timeline, the kingdom of heaven. So, I encourage people to be hip to the developments in cryptocurrency. We're still not even remotely close to where we're going, but the amount of institutional interest in decentralized mechanisms like this is a very good thing. There will be one or the other, central bank digital currencies or a decentralized crypto. Actually, they'll probably coexist, and people will be able to freely choose between fifth world and sixth world, of slavery and freedom, of actual liberty and full spectrum experience in this new world, versus those who are locked inside their little mental cages, and basically will do whatever the boob tube tells them to do. And their vaunted celebrities and babbling politicians and all the rest. But God forbid they actually use their God-given common sense and critical thinking, because that is verboten, right? Soros forbids it. And so, yeah, basically, the beautiful thing about opportunity zones is that even if you don't have a bunch of money in Apple stock, or you don't have a bunch of stock and securities to sell, if chances are you live near an opportunity zone, and if you start a business, just literally, or even just put together a business plan, find a place, a piece of property for sale or lease, and whatever whatever your trade is, whatever you want to do, if you have some business plan, look for an opportunity zone property and market that to your investors, and let them know that if they invest in your company, not only do they invest on the merits of the business, which hopefully are substantial, but they also get these extrinsic tax benefits for investing in your business specifically. That if they sell some of their Apple stock, so to speak, to invest in you, they also get out of paying their capital gains tax, at least for a time, as a result of it being an opportunity zone business, a qualified opportunity fund. And that the real, like, the golden cherry on top of the whole thing is not just the deferral of the capital gains tax and the reduction of the amount that is owed over that time. It's that if a person holds for 10 years or more in an opportunity zone business and then sells that stake in that business, there is no capital gains tax levied. 0%. Meaning, let's say you invested $1,000 in a legal hemp CBD company that is operating in an opportunity zone, for example. And then basically you hold that investment for 10 years, right? $1,000, and that $1,000 goes up 1,000%, right? So basically, that would be in the range of $1 million off of your 1,000. So your gain would essentially be the entire million, just to use the numbers that are round enough. So that 31%, that $310,000 that you would have had to fork over to Uncle Sam, is not owed at all. Period. It goes into your pocket. You keep the entire gain. And as long as in California you do something for clean energy, you can say that you're helping the climate, right? It's basically, you will be eliminated from the state capital gains tax as well. I mean, we'll see what happens over 10 years in California. Anything's possible in California, but that's the status right now, and that's a tremendous value proposition to investors. No matter what business you're in, do it in an opportunity zone. And we'll talk more about this soon. Take it easy, guys. Peace.
Ah.